We get a fine new house. You mustn't say that, Maggie reprimanded her. She stared at the other girl with concern. Think of all the fine things here you'd never be able to replace, like the books, the paintings, and the antiques. And the ghosts, Carolyn replied. I think there must be one for each of its 40 rooms. And on a dark, gloomy night like this, you sort of expect to see them all. Maggie laughed. You've listened too much to the villagers' superstitious stories. You can't very well ignore them. I'd make a try, Maggie advised as she reached further back to dust the wall. As she briskly rubbed the stained oak, there was a sudden clicking sound, and a tiny door about 10 inches high by 7 inches wide sprung open. Maggie gasped and drew her hand back. What is it? Carolyn had heard the clicking sound and witnessed Maggie's surprised reaction. Some sort of secret compartment, Maggie said, giving Carolyn an odd glance. Shall I see what's in it, or call your mother first? She left the job to us. I don't see why we need bother her. Well, I suppose we can speak to her about it later, Maggie said hesitantly. Then she turned and, peering into the shadows of the shelf, reached out to find what might be in the dark compartment. In a moment, her hand touched what seemed to be small booklets, and she drew out a tiny stack of brown-covered notebooks neatly tied with a pink ribbon. Is that all there is in there? Carolyn said, disappointed. Maggie reached in again. I guess so. Then she gave her attention to the bound notebooks. These look like diaries. Oh, our ancestors were always keeping them, Carolyn said. The Collins family bred a lot of self-important individuals. Maggie was untying the books. I think keeping a diary is a fine idea. Well, why would anyone hide a diary in there? Well, they might not want it to be found, Maggie said, opening the first one. Her eyes scanned the neat writing and faded purple ink on the page yellowed by age. Then she told Carolyn, This seems fascinating. It dates back to the period of Queen Victoria. It's the diary of some English girl named Diana Hastings. Diana Hastings? I've never heard of her, Carolyn said. Nor I, Maggie agreed. And she opened the other books. They're all in the same hand. I'm going to take these up to my bedroom with me and read them before I go to sleep. I can tell your mother about them in the morning. Carolyn gave a tiny shudder. I wouldn't want to read any dead girl's diary on this weird kind of night. It would make me think of ghosts. Maggie glanced at the books in her hand with a sad smile. I'm sure Diana Hastings must have been a pleasant girl, and perhaps her spirit will be more at rest for my reading what she has written. Carolyn picked up her duster and returned to the stack of books. Let's not talk about it any more. The very thought of it makes me feel creepy. So Maggie discreetly made no more mention of the diaries as they continued their work. But when they stopped just before 10, she took the notebooks upstairs with her. She bade Carolyn good night in the dim light of the main hallway and entered her darkened room. Not until she was in bed did she start to read the various notebooks. She kept her small bedside lamp on for the purpose, although its light was really inadequate. Her window was open a fraction, and a slight breeze had come up, billowing the white lace curtain. Maggie read until her eyes began to ache. When she closed the last of the diaries and snapped off the bed lamp, she lay back on her pillow and studied the ghostly movement of the billowing white curtain in the darkness. Like a hovering wraith, she thought, as her eyes gently closed. The thin, feminine voice came like the soft sighing of a night wind, and the words were clear, if faintly spoken. Now you know something of my life in London town so long ago. It was an evening in May in the London of good Queen Victoria. The Queen was in deep mourning for the recently deceased Prince Albert, but the grief the tiny monarch felt for her dead husband was no longer shared by the populace in general.